I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, March the 28th, 2013. The Times of Israel reports that a large number of Syrian soldiers have abandoned their posts near the border with Israel. Citing Arabic news agency Al Arabiya, the report said that the soldiers were guarding near the town of Quneitra, which is just a few miles from the Israel-Syria border. As you may have seen on IBA News, concern continues to grow along the border as fighting in Syria's south intensifies. This latest report, the Times of Israel said, is just another sign that Damascus is losing control of the Syrian Golan Heights. The UN peacekeeping force in the area said earlier this week that they had to reduce their footprint on the Golan Heights, cutting back their patrols of the area. The UN has also increased protection for the peacekeeping forces that remain stationed there. Israel's border with Syria has also seen a growing number of injured Syrians arriving at the border with Israel in need of medical attention. And Ynet reports today that Israeli officials confirmed that a military field hospital has been built at an IDF outpost in the Golan Heights to treat those injured Syrians right near the border fence and avoid having to evacuate them to hospitals inside the country. Israel's security agency, the Shin Bet, announced today that they arrested approximately 30 Palestinians on suspicion of carrying out multiple Molotov cocktail attacks. The 30 are from the Bethlehem area and members of the Tanzim Fatah terror group. They are suspected of several attacks on the West Bank settlement of Migdal Oz. The Shin Bet said the suspects confessed to the attacks and also to plans to carry out additional attacks, including the use of machine guns in the Gush Etzion area. The Shin Bet said those plans were disrupted by these arrests. A court in Cyprus has sentenced the Hezbollah operative who was found guilty of 5 charges of conspiring and membership in a terror organization to 4 years in jail. As we reported earlier this week, Hossam Taleb Yaqub's conviction relates to planning a foiled terror attack against Israeli tourists in Cyprus. It is hoped that Yaqub's conviction and sentencing, together with Bulgaria's recent findings that Hezbollah was behind the terror attack that took place there last summer, will add urgency to calls for the European Union to list Hezbollah as a terror organization. Meanwhile, the interim prime minister of Bulgaria said his country would provide further evidence of Hezbollah's involvement in the attack in Burgas that killed 5 Israeli tourists and a Bulgarian bus driver. They would submit those to the EU for that same goal. Marin Rykov said in Brussels yesterday that some EU countries were not sufficiently convinced of Hezbollah's role in the attack, and said, "We will continue to work on this very seriously, very actively. We will provide the needed evidence." Rykov also said it was not his country's role to initiate listing Hezbollah as a terror group. He said, "I think that our partners will be able to do this once they reach a certain level of consensus on this issue." EU countries such as Austria and Germany have continued to block any listing of Hezbollah because of what they said was insufficient legal evidence showing Hezbollah engages in terrorism. The Cyprus conviction today represents the first conviction of a Hezbollah member in a European court. Controversial anti-Israel posters are once again appearing in train stations across the area. Billboards calling for an end to American aid to Israel and calling Israel's treatment of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza a form of apartheid went up this week at 25 Metro-North train stations across New York and Connecticut. They are sponsored by a group called American Muslims for Palestine and read, "End Apartheid Now, Stop U.S. Aid to Israel." The Anti-Defamation League called the campaign malicious and false and said, "We are deeply disturbed that American Muslims for Palestine is undertaking a billboard campaign that falsely accuses Israel of, quote, apartheid." Further saying their ad campaign ignores the complicated nature of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and is part of the campaign to delegitimize and demonize the Jewish state. The ADL also noted the launch of the campaign, which was this past Monday, the eve of the Passover holiday, saying that the timing showed a profound lack of sensitivity. This is not the first time such ads are appearing in Metro North train stations. Last July, the Committee for Peace in Israel and Palestine posted billboards accusing Israel of confiscating large amounts of Palestinian land. The recent American Muslims for Palestine campaign is set to run for a month, and billboards are scheduled to be posted in several additional cities, including Washington, D.C., Chicago, and San Francisco. Mark Golub discusses the anti-Israel billboard campaign on Shalom TV's In the News. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, March the 28th, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.